All right, today we are talking about the periodic table. I know that you have notes and videos and different things on the periodic table, but I'm just adding in some more, making sure that you have what you need and what I need you to have as far as the periodic table. So we see that the periodic table, it goes from, number 1 all the way through number 18. These down, including these down here at the bottom that would fit into this section here. So our periodic table is broken down. We have periods that are here, and there are 7 periods, just like you have in school. You have 7 class periods. There are 7 periods of the periodic table. And the periods tell how many electron shells these atoms have, these elements have. Now we know that an atom is broken down. You have that protons and neutrons inside the nucleus, and then outside of it you have the electrons that are floating around in that electron cloud, or the electron shells or orbitals. The periods tell how many of those shells it is. Now across the top we have what we call groups. Now the groups of elements, meaning each of these individual columns, we can see we have 18 of them. They have more things in common. They have more similar chemical properties. The groups range from the alkali metals here, which would be group 1, the alkali metals, all the way to 18, which are our noble gases, meaning that all of these are in gas form, and they have a lot of other chemical properties that are in common. When we are talking about how these elements are broken down, we have ones that are solids, liquids, and gases. Now, right now, this is pretty much set up, but it's not really set up, so it's not necessarily color coded right now. But most of these are solids. You have a few here. These are all gases, as well as this one. Like I said, it's not color coded right now, but these are all gases. Then you have some that are liquids, and there's only a few of them that are liquid at room temperature. You have bromine, that is a liquid nonmetal, and mercury, that is a liquid metal. And then everything else, these are all solids. Everything else, they're all solids. Then you also have ones that are metals and nonmetals, and then you have metalloids. They're like the mixed kids of the bunch. They have some properties of nonmetals, and they have some properties of metals. The metalloids are these that are right here, this little step thing that's going on. These are our metalloids. So like I said, they have properties of both of them. Then otherwise, most of these are all metals. All of these, majority of the periodic table is composed of metals, except for this hydrogen here. But everything else on this side, these are all metals. Then you have, these are nonmetals, and then like we said, you have the metalloids. Now when we're talking about setting up a model of these different atoms, there is what we would call the Bohr model. I'll pull up another screen. So we're talking about a Bohr model. A Bohr model, named after Niels Bohr. It shows how we're focusing on the amount of electrons and the valence electrons that there are, because it goes into reactivity and the different types of bonds that will be created. So if we're starting with just one electron, change the color, just one electron, that would mean that it has only one proton. And we're not necessarily worried about neutrons right this very second, but this one proton means that it has one electron, and that would be hydrogen. Now if I added another electron, that means I've also added another proton. And so therefore, if I've added another proton, it is no longer hydrogen, it is now helium. Now, I'm not going to add a third one to this ring, because you actually go on to the next, ring after 2. It goes 2, then 8, then 8, and then so on. So then if I add a third one, any guesses on what that would be? Somebody might have known it. It is lithium. And then we add on a fourth one. That's beryllium. 5 is boron. 6 is carbon. And so on and so on and so on from there. I'm not going to keep going with that. So the whole concept of the Bohr model is so that we can see how many how many electrons are in this outer ring here, because that's what the valence electrons are. Valence electrons are those in the outermost shell. So those are the outermost electrons. So, for example, if I made another column here, and I asked how many valence electrons there were for, that should be carbon. For carbon, then it is, I don't know what that is. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 in the outermost shell. If I kept going and I added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now, of course, I have a whole different element, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So if I skipped up to 11, that means that I am looking at sodium. I want to know how many valence electrons sodium has. Sodium has 1, and carbon had 4. Now, using my periodic table, these numbers, like we said, these numbers tell us how many valence electrons and how many electron shells that it had. For example, if we were looking back at sodium, if we were looking at sodium, and make some space. Sodium it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So it's 11 electrons, but there's that 1 on the outside. So that means it has that 1 valence electron. We can see that it is in that first group, meaning that all of these in this first group have 1 valence electron. This 3 here, if you haven't guessed it already, the 3 stands for how many shells it has. We already said it, but it has 3 shells. So that would be the answer. If I asked you how many valence electrons or how many shells sodium has, you should be able to look at the periodic table using these numbers and give me an answer. So if I looked at chlorine, chlorine is right here. Chlorine has 17. So if we do a Bohr model, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Go to my next circle. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So chlorine, if we look all the way across, it has 3 shells, in which it does, and it has 7 valence electrons. Now, you might be like, well, how you got 7 from 17? When we get to these, and there will be some periodic tables that you'll see, but the numbers start back over for here. So it goes 1, 2, then it'll be 3, 4, 5. Okay, I was going to do 2 different ways of writing that. 5, 6, 7, and 8. So that is, so this whole video, because I'm about to end this video here, we've looked at periods, groups, we got different families, we have these Bohr models, the valence electrons, and the number of electron shells. So coming next, you will have an assignment where you actually be filling in some questions and answering some more questions.